Welcome, one and all, to Jareeve's very special Oscar special, spectacular special. I'm your host, the Oscar complainer himself, the Jareeve, and here we are for the 2018 Academy Awards. This year is the 90th ceremony, and the Academy has some interesting nominees, including the very first female cinematographer nominated, and the first horror film since The Sixth Sense in 1999 to be up for Best Picture. There's also been some other interesting topics surrounding some of the nominees, in particular one that has surfaced after a certain film and actor won at the Golden Globes. But I won't get into that now. We have plenty of guest YouTubers here to give their piece and predict their winners. This is the second Oscar special I've done, as last year, 2017, saw me and 5 others pick the correct Best Picture winner for about 5 minutes before the mistake of the century took place. As for the total scores, if you remember, yours truly took first place with 17 out of 24. Magnus Prophecy and Haven of Singles then both tied for second with 16. Movie Outhouse had 12, Bigg had 11, and the Cynical Cypher was in last place with 9. And let's not forget Carlos Rivera Fernandez, who ended with a score of 14. Again, I apologize for forgetting you, Carlos, and hopefully this makes up for it. Well, enough chit-chat, it's time to predict some Oscar winners. First up is a man who only scored 9 correct last year. He's made waves recently with his excellent Godzilla history video and surpassed 1,000 subs and is nearing 2,000. Ladies and gentlemen, the Cynical Cypher.
Hello there, everyone. It's very nice to be here again. I'd first like to start off by giving a big thank you to the Jareeve for featuring me once again in this annual special spectacular despite my less than stellar performance last year. Seriously, I got beat by the guy that was memeing it up last year. But thanks to Jareeve, I have now been offered the chance at redemption. So without further ado, let's get into my predictions for this year's Oscars. Starting my predictions off will be Best Supporting Actress, which I will give to Leslie Manville for her performance in Paul Thomas Anderson's Phantom Thread. Looking at these nominations, I honestly feel like I can say that nobody even comes close to her performance and influence in this film. She manages to stand out in her supporting role far more than most of the other nominations, and I honestly don't think anyone even comes close to touching her performance. It's okay, you're still the winner of my heart, Octavia Spencer. Moving on to Best Supporting Actor, with a little bit more difficulty, I'm going to choose Sam Rockwell for his performance in 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. Despite being in some tough competition with Woody Harrelson's performance in the same picture, and Willem Dafoe's great performance in The Florida Project, the main reason I'm choosing Sam is because his performance in the film certainly was one of the most talked about, and certainly was one of the most controversial. Likely even more so than Frances McDormand's performance. Speaking of which, let's now move on to Best Actress, which I am not surprisingly giving to Frances McDormand. Not much to say here, I think she's just the favored one to win. That, and I don't think anyone wants to go up there and try to pronounce Saoirse Ronan's name just to ultimately embarrass themselves. Nonetheless, for Best Actor, we've got a pretty interesting selection of actors. But I just don't think any of them come close to Daniel Day-Lewis in his final role in Phantom Thread. I dare even say that he might have given the best performance of the year overall. I get the feeling that this choice is going to come back to haunt me, considering Gary Oldman is probably the actor more favored to win because, you know, Oscars. But hey, I guess I'll bet on a miracle. For Best Director, I'm going to go with a somewhat surprising pick from the Golden Globes, Guillermo del Toro. It would honestly be a tragedy if The Shape of Water didn't get any significant wins considering the 13 award nominations it has, and I think this is probably where we'll see it, but very deservingly so. I honestly wish that I could say that it'll win more in these big categories, but you know, Oscars. Finally, that brings me to my choice for the final category of Best Picture. And as long as we don't get another mishap of catastrophic proportions like we did last year, I believe the film taking home the glory of Best Picture will be 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. Ever since I saw the film, it immediately became my prediction to win Best Picture, and despite it being up against some pretty stiff competition, I'm going to stick to my guns on this one. While it's not my personal favorite feature of the year, I certainly feel like it carries a lot of those qualities that so many other Best Picture wins have. Also, seeing how much of a dialogue this film has sparked among the few people that have actually seen it definitely makes it have that kind of timeless feel that, again, so many of these Best Picture winners have. And that's not to discount the quality of the film, as it certainly is one of the year's best and totally deserving of the win. With that being said, I do want to talk a bit more about 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, but more specifically, all the controversy surrounding it. See, I've already made a video talking about the complexity on display when watching the movie and why it's so effective. It manages to discuss a number of themes very openly and very effectively, leaving viewers with some significant questions to ask themselves after their viewing. However, this is yet another film that has fallen into criticism from the public eye. This critique being one of the film's supposed bigotry and insensitivity, or to call it as simply as some are, the film is supposedly racist. God. A label that is seemingly being thrown more and more on films that obviously don't deserve it. An example being nearly the same controversy occurring the year prior with La La Land, a film that doesn't even explore race relations. But I'm not gonna jump into that rabbit hole. I want to talk about the character in 3 Billboards that all the controversy is around, and that is Sam Rockwell's character as Officer Dixon. There have been some articles that I think are just more or less tolerable and miss the point of Dixon's presence in the film, by the thesis of their articles saying that the film would have worked better without this racist cop. But then there are these Twitter rants that basically come down to calling the film super white and edgy. Kind of hurts my head a little bit to see people completely avoid the use of their heads. Abstract thought is not that difficult, people. Let's learn to interpret things beyond the surface value. Come on, guys. So anyway, what is it that makes this character so controversial? What is the subject of debate that people have looked towards, rather than the social commentary the rest of the film has to present? Well, it's rather simple. His character is outstandingly racist. The film makes a very open point about police brutality, especially towards people of color. Dixon is one of the central issues of the film, being a very belligerent, ignorant, and bigoted character. If his character ended at, he's a racist cop, then it's possible I could see where some of the controversy was coming from, but these critiques are so far off the point that I have to ask how these people that criticize the film managed to miss the point in such an amazingly spectacular way, or if they even watched the film in the first place. This is because Dixon's character is a lot more complex than the surface level racism. To quote my video on 3 Billboards, this movie is all about victims. So even though there are victims from Dixon's truculent path, and he does commit some heinous crimes, let's not forget that even Dixon himself is a victim. I don't want to get into detail with this point, since I don't want to spoil anyone and rob them of an experience that I think you definitely should see. So let me finish with this point. Something I think people should take away from this controversy is to avoid seeing things at surface level and leaving them as that. Oftentimes, there's a lot more complexity and artistry that goes into these things that become lost because of some factor or another. Maybe instead of taking away the fact that there was an openly racist cop, why not ask, why was there a racist cop? Why not ask what led to this character becoming racist? Why not ask why a character like this has been such a relevant point of discussion right now? This film has plenty of genuinely nuanced discussions that it communicates to the audience that have been seemingly lost in the sea of frankly ridiculous criticism. I'm sure that many of the people watching this video probably have the logic to understand this, but I genuinely am pretty saddened by the stance some people have taken on this matter. And considering that I believe 3 Billboards will basically sweep many of the large awards, it's going to be in the public eye even more. leading to probably more of these nonsensical reactions. So I just wanted to get my opinion on the matter out there, since it seems to be one of the leading points going into the Oscars this year. Disappointingly. Nonetheless, another massive thank you to the Jareeve for a chance at redemption, and Blade Runner 2049 was snubbed for Best Picture. Good night, everybody.
Thank you, Justin. Here's his full list of picks for 2017. Our next predictor is a smaller YouTuber like most of us and is making his very first appearance on my tiny channel. Please welcome our next guest, August Movie Reviewer.
So, what do I think will win some of the various categories in the 2018 Oscars? I'm thinking that in terms of directing, Guillermo del Toro is going to pick up a win in this case. This is chiefly because of the fact that the buzz surrounding it, although I would really like to see Jordan Peele and Paul Thomas Anderson pick up a win. Not that I think Paul Thomas Anderson's directing in Phantom Thread was all that showy, although, to be fair, it really didn't need to be considering the story that was being told, but I'd like to see him win regardless. As for Jordan Peele, with his breakout directorial film, I think it would be really nice to see him pick up a very well-deserved win over it, and that would just make me very happy. Supporting actor and actress. I figure that Octavia Spencer is probably gonna win, and deservedly so, because she, A, portrays this great character fantastically. To me, it's really just hard to describe how well she did of a job without also then going into the character, because she acts the heck out of every scene she's in, but not to the degree where it's like cheesy and corny, but to the point where it's realistic and you can see it as someone's actual reaction. As for actor, I figure that Sam Rockwell is probably gonna be getting this, just because he was really good, and if you look at the other award shows which Oscar judges vote in, he's gotten some pretty good votes towards his name. Leading actress. I'm gonna go with Frances McDormand on this one, both in terms of who I'd want to win and who I'd nominate. She sells this character to you, and what I enjoy is she could actually cry and emote, unlike Lucas Hedges, who was constantly muddying the scenes she was in. But I could go on a whole tangent about him, but this is about McDormand and her brilliant performance. What makes me think that McDormand is going to win is a buzz. I think she could really emote and express her character well, and she definitely deserves the win for that. Leading actor. I haven't seen the person who I think is gonna win, and this is more just based on me hearing the fact good things about it and that it's a period piece, but I'm predicting Gary Oldman will pick up the win here, and yeah, I haven't seen Darkest Hour, so I can't speak about the performances, but my US history teacher said it was good, so it must be good. But who I would want to win is Daniel Kaluuya, who delivered this really good kind of breakout into the mainstream performance. He sells his character in some of the most dramatic scenes, for those who've seen Get Out, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's the therapy scene. That scene is brilliantly done. And Best Picture, who's probably gonna win? Well, The Shape of Water. And that's just because of all the hype surrounding this film. And I think it's good, but I think there's better stuff in the running, there's Call Me By Your Name, Phantom Thread, and 3 Billboards. Quite frankly, I think Guillermo just kinda has been repeating himself these past couple of years, ever since he made Pan's Labyrinth. Any of those I'd like to see win, but really, whoever wins it, I think these directors worked hard to create these fantastic movies that are in the running for Best Picture. Except for The Post.
Thanks, August. Here's his full list of picks for 2017. Next up is a guy that goes by many names. If you check Twitter, he's even got his own Twitter fan page account. Please welcome Dank Thomas.
Thanks for having me on the show, Jareeve. 2017 was a fantastic year for film, full of movies I really connected to and can imagine becoming some of my favorite films of all time. I don't care too much about the Oscars, but they can help certain people in the film industry out with pursuing a bigger career. So here are my predictions. Best Picture I think is gonna go to 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. I absolutely love this film. Just everything about it speaks to me, and it has become one of my new favorite movies. I was unsure if I should have chosen The Shape of Water or 3 Billboards, but I feel like a realistic film about America is something the Oscars would rather want than a dark fantasy romance. Despite The Shape of Water getting lots of big awards and having lots of buzz, 3 Billboards winning just seems more likely to me. Best Director I think will go to Guillermo del Toro, however. He already won at the Golden Globes, and everyone seems to be really rooting for him. I haven't seen The Shape of Water yet, but I can imagine the directing is beautiful, so I wouldn't be surprised or disappointed if it wins. Best Actor I think is going to Daniel Day-Lewis. It's either him or Timothée Chalamet, but I don't think Call Me By Your Name is a popular enough film for him to win. Not saying Phantom Thread is popular, but Daniel Day-Lewis is already much more well known than Timothée Chalamet, and Paul Thomas Anderson has already directed an Oscar-nominated film with Daniel Day-Lewis before, so I think this is more likely. I'd totally be happy if Timothée Chalamet won though, because Call Me By Your Name was my favorite film for 2017. Best Supporting Actor I think is definitely going to Sam Rockwell. Don't know if I really need to explain why. His performance in 3 Billboards was phenomenal. He already won at the Golden Globes, and I don't think anyone would disagree. His performance was amazing. It's just gonna happen. I can't imagine anyone else winning. Best Actress I think is going to Frances McDormand. Again, she won the Golden Globe. 3 Billboards is getting lots of Oscar buzz. I see it happening. Best Supporting Actress I think will go to Laurie McPherson. Not for a particular big reason, but I cannot see Lady Bird not winning anything. And I don't think it's gonna win in any of the other big categories it's nominated in, which include Best Picture, Best Original Screenplay, Best Director, and this one, Best Supporting Actress, probably some other ones I don't remember. I think she's gonna win. Lady Bird, really beloved. It should win something. I mean, it will win probably something. Even though I don't love it as much as others. Sorry if you love it, I didn't, but it's okay. Now that I've gotten all these Oscar movies out of the way, there is one movie that came out in 2017 that I absolutely adored, and the Oscars aren't giving it any attention. And the Golden Globes didn't give it any attention either. It's The Killing of a Sacred Deer by Yorgos Lanthimos. This movie is amazing. It's perfect. It's flawless. It's insane. It's so good. Oh my god. I'm hyping this up way too much. But you should all check out The Killing of a Sacred Deer. It's easily the most unnerving film I've seen in years. I genuinely think this might be the best quote-unquote horror movie since The Shining. I'm going that far. This is one hell of a ride. This is just a blast to watch. And the performances in this are amazing as well. Colin Farrell gives one of the best performances of last year. And it's a shame he doesn't get any attention for this role. The same goes for Nicole Kidman, who's also amazing. But what's especially terrible is how Barry Keoghan didn't get any nominations at all. Just because he's not pretty or just because, I don't know, he's not playing Winston Churchill doesn't mean he shouldn't get any attention. He gave one of the absolute best performances of last year. His performance was just terrifying. So check this movie out, it's amazing, I love it, you might love it too, just yeah. Anyway, again, thanks for having me on this. Hope you enjoyed my segment. I'm gonna leave now.
Thank you, Thomas. Here's his full list of picks for 2017. The next guy is also making his debut on my tiny, insignificant channel. This boy loves his movies and is a great addition to the special. Ladies and gentlemen, hipsters and normies, Zach Antle.
Well, hey there. Thank you, Jareeve, for letting me participate in your video this year. I'm really excited, but I should probably preface this by saying that I've become extremely cynical towards the Oscars in the last couple of years, which really isn't that hard to do when you realize that more often than not, all it really comprises is campaigning as hard as possible, and it also seems the Academy has a penchant for awarding films which are the most quote-unquote progressive in order to remain relevant, which is kind of ironic considering no one really watches the Oscars anymore anyway besides us guys. So yeah. I will be predicting Best Picture, Director, Actor, Actress, Supporting Actor, and Supporting Actress in that order, and for Best Picture, I really don't think it can go to anything else other than Dunkirk because, let's be real here, it's a World War II epic, it's really the biggest film out of all of those nominated, and we all know the Academy is absolutely salivating over this film at this point in order to give it the big award. As for Best Director, again, Christopher Nolan for Dunkirk, because, in a way, he's really kind of deserved this nomination after everything else he's done. And just in general, with everything else he's up against, I mean, Get Out, Lady Bird, and Phantom Thread all seem like amazing films. Get Out is a great film, but they all seem far too kind of small and intimate films, you know, for that kind of award. Generally, the Academy doesn't like giving Best Director to these really small, indie type of films. And as for The Shape of Water, I would not be at all upset if the award went to Guillermo del Toro, but, you know, he'll probably get nominated for something even better eventually, and we all know Guillermo's probably going to win an Oscar eventually. Here's hoping. As for Best Actor, is there really any competition for Gary Oldman for Darkest Hour? I mean, he's playing a World War II figure in prosthetic makeup. Everyone else in this bracket is pretty good. Timothée Chalamet and Daniel Kaluuya are probably also going to be nominated again for works in the future. Definitely Daniel Kaluuya, because they're talented and this is their first nomination. And if they get nominated, or excuse me, win an Oscar for their first film, where else can they go for there? Or not their first film, excuse me, but the first film to which they become very well known. It would be nice to see Daniel Day-Lewis win for Phantom Thread, as I'm told his performance is really good, but yeah, there really is nothing beating Oldman this year. And oh yeah, Denzel Washington was nominated for Roman J. Israel Esquire. Never saw it, never heard anyone talk about it. Probably just a filler nomination after they decided to not nominate, what's-his-face for The Disaster Artist. Yeah, I'm having a brain fart right now, I'll probably remember it eventually. Best Actress, Frances McDormand is a lock for 3 billboards, come on. And again, it would be nice to see Sally Hawkins win for Shape of Water. Margot Robbie is probably also going to be nominated again, because, you know, this is her first nomination, and we all know she's a great actress, and she can probably do a lot better than I, Tonya. Or, potentially, it could go to Saoirse Ronan for Lady Bird, because this is her 3rd nomination, and, you know, the Academy likes giving these kinds of awards to the ingenue. I don't necessarily know if Saoirse Ronan counts as an ingenue anymore, but still. And then there's Meryl for The Post, and yeah, she'll probably get her 4th Oscar eventually, but probably not for this. Best Supporting Actor, If Willem Dafoe was to win for the Florida Project, I would not at all be upset, because this is his third nomination in 30 years, and he's just one of those mainstay actors that you always can kind of depend on in Hollywood and who is legitimately talented. Woody Harrelson or Sam Rockwell might win for 3 Billboards, potentially Woody Harrelson, because he's also a previous nominee, and it may or may not be some type of consolation prize for the fact that he never won an Emmy for True Detective a couple years back. And Richard Jenkins for The Shape of Water I could also see winning because token gay character. And then finally we have Best Supporting Actress. In all honesty, I could see this really going to Allison Janney for I, Tonya, because the Academy really seems to like their abusive mother archetype for this kind of category. But I could also see Mary J. Blige winning for Mudbound because, well, I don't really think I need to explain that, do I? I'm told Leslie Manville does very well in Phantom Thread in a very kind of dignified, quiet performance. Laurie Metcalf in Lady Bird is more or less playing a more subtle version of Allison Janney's I, Tonya character, and, well, as far as comedic performances go, Octavia Spencer in The Shape of Water is also amazing, and I would not be upset if she won either, because she was the one who made me laugh the hardest while watching that film. And now for my personal favorite category, it would be cinematography. I think we can all surmise that if Roger Deakins does not win this time for Blade Runner 2049, heads are probably going to roll. And there's going to be a bunch of pissy complaining over Twitter and the like, just like there have been in the last few years when everyone's preferred nominee didn't win. And it's also good to see Bruno Delbano nominated again after his work for films like Amelie, that one Harry Potter movie, and I forget what it's called, the French World War I movie. And Hoyt van Hoytema, a fantastic cinematographer, has proved himself very much in the last few years, been nominated for Dunkirk. Dan Listenson also has been nominated for Shape of Water. My personal favorite work for him was the first Silent Hill movie, ironically enough. And finally, we have Rachel Morrison, the first woman to ever be nominated for her work on Mudbound. And it's also good to see a woman be nominated for work which is actually deserving of a nomination, and not just nominated because woman. And yeah, that's about all I can really think to talk about. This is going to be a very exciting Oscars this year. I'll see myself out. Thank you for Jareeve for letting me participate again, and I'll see you later.
Thanks, Zach. Here's his full list of picks for 2017. Our next guest is a guy that I've spent a few good Movie Ben podcasts with. Just recently, he graciously allowed me a spot on his Best of 2017 video series, specifically to discuss my favorite album from last year. Please welcome Jobert.
Oh, why, thank you, Mr. Jareeve. Oh, hello, everyone. It's your good old pal, Jobert here to talk to you about the Oscars for 2018. Now, nominations this year have been pretty good. Definitely a lot of noticeable exclusions, but still relatively solid. So let's get started with predictions. So let's start with supporting actor. I think I would personally want this to go to Sam Rockwell in 3 Billboards. I think he just did a really fantastic job of portraying his character and giving his character a lot of unexpected depth through his performance, and it would really make me happy to see him walk away with the award. However, I am currently predicting that the award is going to go to Christopher Plummer, just so the Academy can have their little spacey meme. I am predicting this is going to go to Leslie Manville for Phantom Thread. I think the whole hype around this movie, this being Daniel Day-Lewis's final performance, I think that hype is really going to drive the Oscars to give this movie as much awards as it can, to have it be remembered. As for what I would personally pick, I haven't seen I, Tonya, I haven't seen Mudbound, hell, I haven't seen Phantom Thread. So considering I haven't seen the majority of the movies, I can't really decide on one, so I'm gonna leave my personal entry for this one blank. On to Best Director. For Best Director, I am predicting that PTA is going to win the award. Once again, Phantom Thread has the last Daniel Day-Lewis movie hype behind it, so I think it's gonna be an easy target for the Academy to want to celebrate. Personally, I would want Guillermo del Toro to win for The Shape of Water, because his directing is just so fantastic, and you can tell he has such a clear vision for how he wants his movies to look and how he wants his movies to feel. And it just comes out so clearly in the final product. Alright, on to lead actor. And now I predict that Daniel Day-Lewis will win the award for Phantom Thread. Now personally, I have only seen Get Out and Call Me By Your Name, so I'm not gonna pick a personal pick for this one because I don't feel like I have a good enough grasp on the category to really choose something. Alright, on to lead actress. I predict the Academy is probably gonna give this one to Meryl Streep because why the not. As for my personal pick, I would want Sally Hawkins to win for The Shape of Water. She conveys so much emotion through no words at all, and it's really amazing what she can do through her limited ways of communication. Alright, on to the big boy. So for the Best Picture category, we have an interesting one this year, because we have an oddball in here. Get Out. A horror movie. Now, think back. When's the last time we had a real oddball in the Best Picture category in the Oscars? That was back in 2015 when we had Mad Max in the Best Picture category. Now, what won for Best Picture in 2015? That's right, it was boring. So I am predicting that this is gonna go to Darkest Hour because the Academy just, they just love us. As for my personal pick and what I would want to win, I would say The Shape of Water is probably the best movie out of all of these. So I would definitely say that is my preferred winner. But there was a noticeable exclusion throughout all of these categories. Where the hell is Blade Runner 2049? Easily the best movie of the whole year. And it's nowhere to be found except for cinematography, which was a shoo-in from the start. No actor nomination for Ryan Gosling's performance as Kay. No directing nomination for Denis Villeneuve. No supporting actress nomination for Ana de Armas for Joy. I mean, come on, there was a bunch of Oscar-worthy roles in this movie. And it just got nothing. But yeah, overall, the Oscars this year, the nominations, they're pretty good. They're all right. So I'd like to thank Jareeve for having me, and I'll hand it on back to him.
Thank you, Jobert. Here's his full list of picks for 2017. Speaking of the Movie Ben podcast, our next guest is the head honcho of the podcast himself. Last year, he memed it up with predictions for Mel Gibson and Meryl Streep. Ladies and gentlemen, Ben Bigg.
Hey everyone, Big Boy here, and I'm back again with more Oscar predictions, and I'm sicker than ever. So without further ado, here are my choices for the Oscars of 2018. For cinematography, I am going to go all out for Roger Deakins. It's been how many years now? Blade Runner was a beautiful film. It's about time we give this man an Oscar. If he doesn't win for this one, then I don't know what I'm gonna do. I guess the world's just gonna keep on spinning. For supporting actress, I really don't have a clue, so I'm just gonna say Allison Janney, just because I've been hearing a lot of buzz around here, so go Allison Janney. For supporting actor, I think it's going to go to Sam Rockwell. Even though his character has gone under some controversy, I think he's still going to win it. He definitely had a big performance. He had a big Oscar moment, if you want to say, so I think it's really going to go to him. For leading actress, Meryl Streep is back again this year, and I am supporting her all the way. I think she definitely got snubbed last year, so Meryl Streep, rooting for you. For leading actor, as much as I want to see Daniel Kaluuya take home this one, I think it's going to be Gary Oldman, just because everyone's been saying Gary Oldman is going to win the Oscar for this one, and sure, why not? Gary Oldman. For director, this is a really difficult one, but I think it's going to go to Guillermo del Toro, and a very well-deserved win for Guillermo del Toro. And for Best Picture, it's really a toss-up of Three Billboards and The Shape of Water. I'm not exactly too sure, but yeah, I'm just going to go with the one that I think is the better film, so The Shape of Water.
Thanks, Bigglesworth. Here's his full list of picks for 2017. Our next nominee is also a dear friend of mine. He's hoping to have his YouTube channel up and running soon. Also known as the man who called in sick to work after eating a bad sandwich, ladies and gentlemen, Darth Dickey.
Alright, let's get this show on the road. I'm gonna start off today for the nomination for Best Supporting Actress. The win for me is going to be Allison Janney for I, Tonya, and I believe that because she was praised right out of TIFF. Everyone was saying it was her year. What she did as playing Tonya Harding's mother was simply marvelous. Every scene with her, Margot Robbie, and Sebastian Stan, she outacted them, and they were incredible in the movie to begin with. So I think hands down, there's no way this is not going to be Allison Janney's year for Best Supporting Actress. Alright, next one I'm going to cover is the Best Supporting Actor. Once again, I think this is leaning towards Sam Rockwell. Woody Harrelson does a great job in the same movie, however, Sam Rockwell has a much more difficult character to portray. His racist cop is one of the most interesting characters this year. It can still be up to debate whether or not he was redeemed at the end, and that's what I kind of appreciate about the film in general. And I think just the way he portrayed that character was, once again, I'm just going to repeat myself, simply outstanding. This is Sam Rockwell's year. Only other contender could be Willem Dafoe from the Florida Project. He's getting a lot of praise too, but Sam Rockwell's probably going to end up with it. Alright, now let's talk about the Best Actress. Sally Hawkins has a lot going for her, and for The Shape of Water, she had to do a lot without saying anything, and I think that is a tremendous effort. However, as much as I loved her, and I think I even loved The Shape of Water a little bit more than Three Billboards, spoiler for Best Picture nominations, I think McDormand just gave a better performance this year. Her character was going through so much grief and anxiety in her life, and she was able to portray that absolutely perfectly. And just every single scene, I could feel her pain. It was just oozing off the screen. There's no way they're not giving it to her this year. Frances McDormand for the win. The next nominations I'm going to go through are Best Actor. I think Gary Oldman is probably going to be the one who wins it. It's hard to say that in a category where Daniel Day-Lewis was also nominated, and so is Timothée Chalamet, or Chalamet, however you pronounce that, for Call Me By Your Name. Both of them gave great performances. However, Gary Oldman has been snubbed in this category for far too long. On top of the makeup, the man just killed Winston Churchill. Not literally, he did a good job portraying him. I think this year he is going to win it for sure for Darkest Hour. Last but definitely not least, we have Best Picture. Whoop, whoop. Whew. It's definitely, for me, it's between Shape of Water and Three Billboards. Three Billboards has all the acting nods. It won more SAG Ensemble Awards. But just because you have great acting does not mean you're going to win the Best Picture. In my opinion, the Best Picture should go to the movie that gave me the best cinematic experience. And for me, that was Shape of Water. I'll tell you why. The visuals in Shape of Water simply outdid Three Billboards. The cinematography, the production design, the costumes, every single thing about it, the CG even for, I cannot remember the actual fish's name. Maybe he has a name or not. Just either way, all of the technical nods towards The Shape of Water simply outdo Three Billboards. I think it was probably my favorite movie of the year, to be honest. I think it's going to win Best Picture. Alright, I'm also going to talk about Best Director nominations. Once again, I am going to have to lean with Guillermo del Toro. However, I'm not going to lie. This could have been Chris Nolan's year had Del Toro not put out another one of his masterpieces. Dunkirk was beautifully directed. There was very little dialogue, which is essentially a film that relies on visuals alone and the ability to tell a story with that. And Chris Nolan did that extremely, extremely well. However, Del Toro just told a better love story in general than Chris Nolan. The story was a little lacking, and I get that was the point, but regardless, the story is important when it comes to directing. And Del Toro just outdid Chris Nolan this year. Sadly, well, not sadly, I really like Del Toro. He's probably going to win Best Director. And now one of my favorite categories to talk about is cinematography. I am over the moon that this is the first year a female was nominated for Best Cinematographer in Rachel Morrison for Mudbound. It really deserved a nomination. It was a gorgeous looking film. And right up there, this category is stacked. Van Hoytma for Dunkirk did a great job as well. Dan Lawson for Shape of Water, oh my god. I'm bowing down. That was gorgeous. But I might be a little jaded in thinking about this. I just want Roger Deakins to win so bad. And Blade Runner 2049 blew me away. I could not just fathom every single frame of that movie. I want pinned up on a wall somewhere in my apartment because it is gorgeous. They have to give it to Deakins this year. Yeah, no, even in color schemes, he just outperforms Dan Lawson. Roger Deakins all the way this year. And the very last thing I want to talk about, because I think it's a very great category to bring up, is the Best Adapted Screenplay. Guess what, guys? A comic book movie got nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay. However, I still think Logan should have got other nominations, maybe a supporting actor for good old Professor X over there. But either way, this category is stacked because while I don't think it's going to win, I was happy about the nomination. I think Disaster Artist, Molly's Game, and Call Me By Her Name are all like right up there. It's so incredibly hard for me to pick one out of all those nominations. However, I am going to give the slight edge to Call Me By Your Name. It stinks that I haven't seen it yet, but from what I've heard, the screenplay in that is incredible. And while I adore Sorkin's writing, I think it's fun, it's flashy. I'm kind of getting used to it, and what I've heard from Call Me By Your Name is that it is wholly original, and it was just very well written. So I have that to win for adapted screenplay. Anyway, that's all the time I have. You guys have a great rest of the video.
Thank you, Dickey. Here's his full list of picks for 2017. Our next YouTuber is a guest from a land far, far away. He's made solid content for the last year or so and once had a quote-unquote interaction with an individual named Dominic W. Please welcome TastyTea.
Thank you, Jareeve, and let's just jump into it. I'm going to be covering every category simply because I think it's fun to do the smaller things as well. So starting off small, I think Wonder should win makeup and hairstyling, because there was clearly a lot of effort put into making Jacob Tremblay's face look disfigured. For film editing, I think it's got to go to Baby Driver. The editing keeps the film fast-paced, and also the matching up with the music to the characters' movements is just fantastic. For short documentary, I'm just going to give it to Heroine. For visual effects, I think everyone in this category is worthy, but I think War for the Planet of the Apes should win, just because of how realistic the motion capture work is. For live action short film, I'll give it to The Silent Child. Animated short film, Revolting Rhymes, it's Roald Dahl related, so why not? Sound mixing, I'm going to give it to Dunkirk, because it's a very loud movie, but also the sound mixing is very good in that film, and I think it deserves to win. For sound editing, I'm going to give it to Baby Driver for the same reasons I gave film editing to it. For costume design, even though I don't want it to win, I think Beauty and the Beast is going to snag that award. Cinematography, it's got to be Blade Runner 2049. Not only do I think it deserves it, since every single shot is beautiful. I even have one of the shots on my desktop right now. But also the Academy owes Roger Deakins this award for snagging him so many times. For production design, I'm going to give it to The Shape of Water. It's set in the 50s or 60s, I'm not entirely sure. And I think films set in the past tend to get the production design award. For original screenplay, I think that Get Out is going to win, and I also want it to win as well. Not only is it a really creative and unique story, but the social commentary is extremely relevant and just really well done. For adapted screenplay, I gotta give it to Call Me By Your Name. I'm reading the book and the film did a magnificent job adapting it to the screen. In fact, they did a phenomenal job. Just how perfectly they encapsulated the feeling and structure of the book is so impressive, and it makes me love Call Me By Your Name even more. For animated feature film, I think we all know it's gonna go to Coco, but I'm just gonna give it to The Boss Baby for the memes, and if it does win, that'll be hilarious. Original score, even though I haven't seen it, I have listened to some of the score, and Phantom Thread has a fantastic score. I've said score a lot, but I think it's gonna win. For original song, I would love Cephon Stevens to win for Mystery of Love, but if I'm gonna be honest, I think it's gonna go to Remember Me. Documentary feature, Icarus, I haven't seen it, but it has a cool name, so just gonna give it to that. Foreign language film, being the uncultured swine I am, I actually haven't seen any of these, unfortunately. I'm gonna give it to A Fantastic Woman, because I've heard some really good things, and also it's about a transgender woman, and since the Oscars so white thing, I think the Academy is trying to push for more progressive wins, not only with race, but also with the LGBT community and everything. But yeah, I'm just gonna give it to that. For director, I was surprised to learn that Christopher Nolan actually hasn't won a Best Director yet, so I think he should get it this year. While I wasn't a massive fan of Dunkirk, the directing was easily the strongest part of that film. Actor in a supporting role, Sam Rockwell, and I honestly think he deserves it. Not only did he make me laugh, but he played his racist arsehole character with so much nuance and depth, and people saying that he shouldn't win because his character is racist is really dumb. Actress in a supporting role, Laurie Metcalf. I hope I pronounced your name name right. She did a really great performance, and I think she deserves it. Actor in a leading role, Daniel Day-Lewis. As I previously said, I haven't seen Phantom Thread, but I think it'd be sentimental for the Academy to give it to him since this is his last performance. Actress in a leading role, Saoirse Ronan. She was great in Lady Bird, even if I didn't think the film was all that great. For Best Picture, I think everyone expects 3 Billboards to win, but I wouldn't be surprised if Call Me By Your Name won as well. I think it could be another Moonlight in how it grabs the Best Picture off of what everyone expected to win, with 3 Billboards being the equivalent of La La Land. Let's just hope if that does happen, it's handled way better than it was last year. I would also love Call Me By Your Name to win since it's my favourite film of 2017, but I'm gonna play it safe and give it to 3 Billboards simply because it has Best Picture written all over it, and it's also a fantastic movie. Thanks so much for letting me on, Jareeve, I really appreciate it, and may the best man win.
Thanks, TastyTea. Here's his full list of picks for 2017.
Only one for me.
Our next guest was a late addition because your beloved Oscar host here almost made another mistake. Fortunately, I remembered in the nick of time and made sure he had plenty of time to submit his predictions. Ladies and gentlemen, Jonas Easley.
This is Jonas. I'm going to discuss Best Supporting Actor, Best Supporting Actress, Best Actor, Best Actress, Best Director, and Best Picture for this year's upcoming 90th Academy Awards. And this was a really strong year for film, as I'm sure a lot of people will tell you. It started strong, Get Out, and it kept on going from there. And so I think when it comes to picking who's going to win this year, I think this year is going to be the year where I feel like the younger Academy members are going to kind of show up, and we're not going to see the usual just kind of like column voting where it always felt like if people felt, you know, say for example 3 Billboards was going to win, then everyone would have, like everybody who's going to pick 3 Billboards. Like if any award 3 Billboards was nominated for, 3 Billboards was going to get that award. So, but I think we're going to get a lot of the nominations have shown, and I think going into this ceremony, I think we're going to see a lot of like hip and hopping. We're going to see, I think most of the movies that have been nominated for the most part, I should say, are going to get an Oscar. It's just we will have to wait until the ceremony to see which ones they are. So I'll talk about Best Supporting Actress first. So I feel like it's really a 2-horse race for the most part between Allison Janney and Laurie Metcalf. I feel as though Laurie Metcalf is probably going to win, mostly because I really immersed myself in her performance a lot compared to Allison Janney, whose character as Levana Golden I felt was more kind of played to the nosebleeds a lot, and as a result kind of made for a good performance. It's just that I felt it kind of the character kind of played as more of a cartoon character, which I feel like is definitely what the movie's going for. The movie as a whole, I feel like, is trying to say that these individuals involved is, you know, this like a character, like just really these one of a kind people. But the other nominees here, like Leslie Manville and Octavia Spencer, I found them to be fine performances. I just wouldn't say that they're at the tier or level that I felt Laurie Metcalf was at. Best Supporting Actor, I feel like, is also going to be a 2-horse race. I do think it's coming down, I feel like, to the rip between Richard Jenkins and Sam Rockwell. I do think Sam Rockwell is probably going to win just because a lot of like awards that we've been seeing have been going to Rockwell, and it's good, but I do prefer Richard Jenkins in Shape of Water, and I just haven't seen any of the other performances. I haven't seen All the Money in the World or The Florida Project to make an accurate prediction. And I feel, again, not to knock Sam Rockwell's performance at all, and I think people are going to see that, and I do think that is part of the reason why it's why he's winning so many awards leading up to this. So when it comes to Best Actor, I do think it's a tough category, a lot to like here. Don't think Denzel Washington is going to win. I'll say that right now. I do feel like there was other performances that were much more worthy, like Ryan Gosling in Blade Runner might have been worth a nomination. But I think the 2 front runners in this category are Timothée Chalamet and Gary Oldman. I think probably Gary Oldman is gonna win just because he's been acting in so many roles for so long. And Timothée Chalamet is a newcomer, and the Academy tends to treat newcomers as kind of like this nomination is more of like a taste of things to come. Well, he might not win this time since we'll be seeing so much of him later on in his career. They'll give it to him later on. Best Actress, I think, should definitely go to Saoirse Ronan as Lady Bird. Again, for a coming of age story, I'm very attached to the character of Lady Bird. But there's a reason why people have been connecting them to Frances McDormand's performance in 3 Billboards. And so I think it shouldn't be overlooked, but I find myself identifying a lot of myself within Lady Bird and allowing myself to really enjoy the performance. So I think Best Director is going to go to Guillermo del Toro, but I do consider anyone who doesn't win this category probably is going to win the Best Original Screenplay category. So I think that really should double as like a second Best Director, considering how many similarities there are between the two categories. So, and I think Best Picture is going to go to Shape of Water, just because it was the movie that hit the hardest for me the most out of all the movies. If not Shape of Water, I would love to see Lady Bird win.
Thanks, Jonas. Here's his full list of picks for 2017. Our next nominee was accidentally shut out from the special last year, and I have continuously kicked myself for it. I then went on to accidentally plagiarize this man's video about Christopher Nolan in one of my recent Golden Globes podcasts. But other than that, please welcome Carlos Rivera Fernandez.
Hi, my name is Carlos, and today we're going to be talking about the Oscars. Thanks for the opportunity, Jareeve. For the supporting actor category, I think my best bet would be to go for Sam Rockwell. That's who has been winning all the major awards as of now, and it's him who will probably be going up on stage to accept. Not only are his chances good according to his previous wins, but his performance in 3 Billboards outside of Ebbing, Missouri is something to marvel at. With the help of Martin McDonagh's screenplay and direction, Rockwell created a character with whom the audience can eventually humanize in accordance with the ignorance of his crimes. Because of this, it becomes a performance that is memorable and relevant to the times. For the supporting actress category, the award will most likely go to Allison Janney for her performance in I, Tonya. She's won the Guild Awards as well as the Major Critics Awards, so she'll ultimately be the best pick. Out of the nominees though, my favorite performance has to be Leslie Manville in Phantom Thread. Any parts in Phantom Thread risked being overshadowed by Daniel Day-Lewis's performance, but Manville manages to maintain an overall cool that juxtaposes very well with the dictatorialism of Day-Lewis's character. That being said, I haven't seen I, Tonya, and I don't very much care to, but my opinion isn't entirely valuable because of that. Actor in a leading role is going to end up going to Gary Oldman. I have not yet seen Darkest Hour, but the hype behind the film is that he is the film, and I don't doubt that he has a great performance in it. The one thing hindering Oldman from winning the award would be the resurging allegations of domestic abuse against his ex-wife in the early 2000s, which would be contradictory to the Me Too movement that has encapsulated the entire award season. If it isn't Oldman, some would say Timothée Chalamet will get the Oscar, but it would probably be Daniel Day-Lewis in that case, which I am perfectly fine with. For actress in a leading role, it's obvious that the award is going to Frances McDormand. It is doubtlessly a great performance and one that shows both the strength and vulnerability female characters should have in all pictures. But out of all the female nominated performances, my favorite is probably Sally Hawkins in The Shape of Water. I loved watching every second of her performance and wish she got some more attention in the awards season. But it is just the Hollywood elite giving awards to each other, so it doesn't really matter. For Best Director, I think Guillermo del Toro has the best chances of winning for The Shape of Water. For him, it would be a great career accolade, and one he has deserved since 2006's Pan's Labyrinth. His ability to master a unique style of filmmaking with a focus on mixing fantasy and reality is something that should be praised infinitely. And it would also allow for the completion of the 3 Amigos Oscars, which also include Alfonso Cuarón and Alejandro G. Iñárritu. But despite this, my pick out of the nominees would probably be Christopher Nolan for Dunkirk, simply because of all the coordination, research, and patience a film like that took. If you take a look at the behind-the-scenes extras that come with the Blu-ray, it becomes possible to see a glimpse of just how much thought was put into Dunkirk. Outside of the nominees though, we all know that Denis Villeneuve actually directed. out of Blade Runner 2049. The Best Picture ballot this year is arguably one of the best in recent memory. There isn't a single film on the list that I haven't yet seen that I wouldn't be interested in seeing, and out of those that I have seen, there isn't a single one that I wouldn't call great. From the list of nominees, my favorite is either Dunkirk or Phantom Thread, two films that genuinely amazed me, but neither of which would probably be described as having the top chances to win. As for the actual winner, what the award season has been coming down to are The Shape of Water and 3 Billboards Outside of Ebbing, Missouri. There is usually one determinant for the Best Picture winner, winning the Best Ensemble at the Screen Actors Guild Awards. This year, that accolade went to 3 Billboards, which were it not for not being nominated for Best Director, I would feel safe in saying would win Best Picture. Seeing as how there have only been 3 cases where the Best Picture was given to a film not nominated for Best Director, however, I'm going to have to give the upper hand to The Shape of Water because it is nominated for Best Director and it was nominated for Best Ensemble at the Screen Actors Guild Awards. On top of all this, I feel it's only appropriate to show my love for the films that got left behind. Obviously, Blade Runner kinda got shat on, but the Academy also missed out on Mother and Happy End, 2 films I feel safe saying that they will stay with me for quite some time. Not that it matters that they weren't nominated, but I genuinely think that they were 2 of the best films from last year and are not getting that much recognition, if any at all. Oh, and one thing that does matter is Roger Deakins' nomination for Blade Runner. If he doesn't win, we riot.
Thanks, Carlos. Here's his full list of picks for 2017. Our next nominee is what I would consider to be a, and I quote, good old buddy old pal. Yes, you all know who I continuously refer to when I say this. He recently spent 3 years making his excellent video on Terry Gilliam's Brazil. Yes, I said years. Without further ado, here is the Maggie boy himself, Magnus Prophecy.
Oh boy! It feels like I just did this and I can't wait to lose miserably yet again. I don't know what it is with awards shows. I either make a near perfect sweep or I get less than half of my predictions right. Maybe I've been subconsciously voting with my heart, or maybe I just need to get out and watch a few more movies. Like that's ever gonna happen. Thankfully and unthankfully, the internet is a thing, meaning that I've actually had the opportunity to see quite a few of the nominated films for this year, but it isn't gonna matter because I'm sure some accusation or belated unwarranted criticism is going to crop up and ruin this list. If this year's Golden Globes hadn't happened yet, I would have probably said that Best Picture was 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri's to lose, but thanks to a rabid trove of immature social media influencers that can't understand that a depiction of racism is not an endorsement, it seems that its position at the top is being challenged. For my money, I'd say that The Shape of Water actually has a better chance of winning, not only because it seems to be an audience favorite from one of modern cinema's most revered visionaries, but it's also picked up a truckload of Producers Guild Awards, and in the end, that's much more valuable than winning Best Picture at the Globes. With all of that being said, I feel that over 2/3 of these nominations are actually representative of what people were watching and enjoying in 2017. So that's nice. Just fill out that final slot if you're gonna have it. I've actually got a bit more to say about that in a second, but I'm gonna round out the major categories first. The Shape of Water is also likely to nab Best Director for Guillermo del Toro. That's far from a bad thing, the man has made some of my favorite films of all time. Really, this is one of the most stacked categories for director in years. Jordan Peele made one of the most clever deconstructions of racial relationships in the West with Get Out, Greta Gerwig clearly knows a thing or two about motivating an effective character arc, and Christopher Nolan used the war film to actually say something about how war affects its combatants instead of simply documenting a battle. Although, in my heart of hearts, I still want Paul Thomas Anderson to win. It'll never happen in a million years, and his nomination is most likely one out of respect for his legacy. But Phantom Thread has a mark of genius that allows you to view it as a separate entity from PTA, and yet you can clearly identify when he's pulling the strings. It's uniquely engrossing, and that requires a lot of forethought and careful planning to execute. Still, Del Toro getting the win is far from disappointing. I'm actually quite bitter about Best Actor because the award has been a long time coming for Gary Oldman. He's one of the few true chameleonic actors who disappears into their roles. So maybe it's only fitting that his most telegraphed and obvious performance for Darkest Hour will earn him the Oscar. I think that Winston Churchill as an individual and as a persona is an extremely interesting topic, but the film in which he's portrayed is so limited in its scope and approach that it's kind of baffling that it extends beyond 2 hours. To put things in perspective, the film is essentially a companion piece to the action-centric Dunkirk, but somehow, I feel like the politics and emotions of the intentionally paper-thin characters in that film were more fleshed out than what were given in Darkest Hour. But never mind any of that. Oldman wore a fat suit, and smoked so many cigars that he got nicotine poisoning. Oscar, please! And again, much like PTA for Best Director, it would be nice to see Daniel Day-Lewis take home one more award for his subdued turn in Phantom Thread, but I wouldn't hedge my bets on it. Surprisingly, it seems that the bad word against Three Billboards has yet to negate the performances it houses. I'd say that Frances McDormand is a safe lock for Best Actress, and I would be totally down with that. Everyone in this category, with the exception of one outlier, is deserving of the award in one way or another. Margot Robbie is really coming into her own as an actress, Sally Hawkins deserves praise for her dedication to her character's mute nature, and Saoirse Ronan will probably end up on several future lists for underrated actresses. The shame of this category is that Meryl Streep is still a dominant force in the Academy, and it's almost purely because of nostalgic voters that refuse to let go of her. And I'm not here to bash on her career as a whole, it's just that her performance in The Post serves a larger function, and there were other actresses more deserving than the 21-time nominated Streep. I thought somebody was joking when I first saw that number, but anyway, McDormand more than deserves the award if it swings in that direction. Same to Sam Rockwell for his performance in the same film. Even though I just complained about the Academy still clinging on to their Golden Girl, I think it's a testament to their restructuring that there are so many stat categories that I can't disagree with at all. Rockwell has been one of the most consistent and prolific character actors of our age, and it would be cool to see him finally win in a category that he so frequently occupies. That being said, I'm a huge Willem Dafoe fan, and he is the soul of the Florida Project. And even though Christopher Plummer won't win, his nomination is a giant middle finger to a socially incompetent and morally reprehensible freak that shall remain unnamed. And it's good to see Richard Jenkins get some attention as well. The more I see him in, the more I realize how detailed and witty his acting truly is. And finally, it would be so nice to see Laurie Metcalf win for Lady Bird, right? Too bad that's not gonna happen. Allison Janney is another hard lock for supporting actress. She's got the standout part in her respective film, so it would take an act of God to separate her from the award. Again, my favoritism for PTA is showing because Leslie Manville was downright creepy and disturbing in Phantom Thread, and the same could also be said of Octavia Spencer's character in The Shape of Water to a lesser degree. But all the same, this is yet another category brimming with great performances. Now, before I go, I'd like to voice my concerns going forward with the Oscars, because this year has continued a trend that I find very annoying. We all know that no matter what, someone is going to scream about snubs. And I'm one of them. And it's not because one nomination replaced an obvious other that was bound to have a chance. Well, maybe in the case of Denzel Washington being nominated over James Franco, but that's a whole nother can of worms that I'm gonna leave untouched. It's the fact that after a decade of having 10 potential slots for nominations for Best Picture, only 2 of them have completely filled the roster. As I understand it, there's a complex rule about how many prior awards you need to have to be considered eligible for the nomination, but filling all of the slots would have relieved so much agony over the past few years, including this one. I know I'm not the only one that's disappointed that Blade Runner 2049 couldn't edge out one more bid for Best Picture. In the same respect, it's sort of confusing that Mudbound was also left out of the conversation. Cary Joji Fukunaga's Beasts of No Nation was snubbed out of the Best Picture and Best Supporting Actor categories back in 2015, and it caused an uproar. Idris Elba gave one of the most nuanced and complex performances of the year, won tons of awards for said performance, and was ultimately shut out by Safe Picks. It goes beyond even the racial representation angle, which is critical. But in any regard, the only reason I'm complaining in the first place is because I like to see a fair and balanced fight. The Oscars have made great strides this year, but I know for a fact they can push themselves just a touch further. And really, the only reason I'm concerned is because I want and plan to win against my friends this year. And it would be nice to have strategic pieces like Blade Runner 2049 and Mudbound on the board. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, big thanks for Jareeve for having me. I am now going to crawl back into my hole and let's just check the schedule here. Die. Have a good one.
Thanks, Maggie Boy. Here's his full list of picks for 2017. Our next nominee also comes from a land far, far away. He tied Maggie Boy last year for second place and takes his time making his own content. Please welcome Haven of Singles.
Thanks for having me again, Jareeve. It's good to be back for another year of Oscar picks, so let's get straight into it. I'm actually really happy with this year's nominations. I don't think we've ever had this much genre representation since Avatar and District 9 were nominated in the same year. There weren't really any performance snubs I could think of off the top of my head. Everyone who I thought deserved recognition got a nomination, even people who I think in other years the Academy would pass over. The only thing that's kind of lame about the acting nominations this year is that I think all 4 categories have been locked up for months now, but there's always surprises at the Oscars, so here's hoping for some variety. Alright, first acting category, Best Actor, which has probably been the safest pick since the award season started. Gary Oldman, frontrunner, and everyone's easy pick to win, including mine. Which is just unfortunate because while I think Oldman is like long overdue for some awards recognition, I really think literally every other performance in this category is stronger than his Churchill impression. I mean, it's just honestly one of the hammiest and baitiest performances I've seen in ages, and it doesn't help that the movie that Oldman is anchoring is completely bland and boring. You compare that to these really mostly internal performances such as Daniel Kaluuya, who I've seen people write off, and are completely wrong by the way, as someone who is constantly trying not to buy into his skepticism of his situation, or Timothée Chalamet's really challenging emotional performance is like one of the best portrayals of decisive young love I've ever seen in a movie. And then there's Denzel's performance in Roman J. Israel Esquire, which while I think the movie doesn't land completely, his performance will be seen as one of the best of his career in a few years' time, I think. And of course, Mr. Lewis, who can't suck if he tried. So you have a bunch of these, honestly, all-time performances nominated, and the frontrunner is this really unexceptional one. It's just a shame, really. Still, Oldman deserves an Oscar. I just wish it was for a better performance. Actress. Another category on the lockdown with Frances McDormand, which is something I can't complain about. It's a really captivating performance. Personally, I'd actually prefer Saoirse Ronan in Lady Bird. One, because I think comedic roles almost never get the recognition they deserve, especially female ones. And two, she's like 20, and this entire movie rests on her shoulders, and she does it with such ease. All around a bunch of impressive nominations. Sally Hawkins, lovely as always in Shape of Water. Margot Robbie is pretty solid, even though I think I, Tonya was not a good movie at all. And Meryl Streep was Meryl Streep. Some things never change at the Oscars, do they, I guess? Supporting actress, again, another lock is Allison Janney, which is a bit surprising considering the frontrunner about a month ago was considered to be Laurie Metcalf, but she seemingly lost all momentum, which kind of sucks because as much as I enjoy Janney as a performer usually, I thought she was pretty bad in I, Tonya. I think a lot of my qualms for the character in the movie is from the writing, where she's basically this cartoon you don't care about in any way, but I don't think her performance in itself is particularly exceptional beyond the usual Janney shtick that I've seen her do before. Metcalf actually feels like a human being, where her vitriol to her daughter is like understandable, not outlandish. So, gonna go against my better judgment and have my pick be Metcalf, just because I really hope she squeezes through with the win. Supporting actor, similar situation where Willem Dafoe was the favourite, and it seems like the tide has turned to Sam Rockwell, which, as much as I love Rockwell, I really do, I just don't get the love for the performance in 3 Billboards at all. Like, it's good, I guess, but nothing about it really felt genuine to me, and I think a lot of the performance coasts on his natural charm. Dafoe has a really great understated performance and quite a challenge for an actor of his caliber to successfully blend in with a lot of these non-actors and not overshadow them. I think that's quite the achievement. Plus he's missed out on like 2 Oscar opportunities already. So again, I'll take another gamble and go against who is more likely to win, but I really think Dafoe could still come through still. Director, just honestly, just look at those names. Like, you could be happy with any of these people winning. All great films, all brilliantly directed. If I was going to guess this like 2 months ago, I probably would have said Nolan, but Del Toro came through and just basically won every major directing award, which is a bit surprising considering Dunkirk is just this amazing technical achievement on basically every level, which the Academy has been leaning into for their choice of director Oscar winner the last few years. And the fact that Nolan has been frequently snubbed, it really did seem like his year to win. But nope, by the looks of it, Del Toro's going to come through with the win, which again, can't complain about, especially since he's such a nice dude and he just makes cool movies. And Best Picture, I did actually think of one major snub for here as I was recording this actually. Florida Project, one of my favorites of last year, missed out on a lot. Actress, I think it could have got over Meryl Streep. Cinematography, gorgeous movie, no recognition there. But I would have loved to have seen it get in over the honestly kind of bad films that are Darkest Hour and The Post. But I guess the Academy just has to squeeze in those Oscar bait movies that no one likes for some reason. Personally, I would love it if Get Out or Lady Bird somehow got the win, but I don't see it happening simply because neither film really picked up in the technicals at nominations, and I only see either one of them winning if either one wins screenplay, which I don't see happening either, unfortunately, only because I think McDonough will pick up screenplay as a consolidation prize for not getting a director nomination. So my pick is going to be for 3 billboards outside of Ebbing, Missouri, because 1, I think it's going to pick up a lot of the other awards on the night, and 2, its closest competitor, Shape of Water, is just way too weird to pick for the Academy for Best Picture. Like, honestly, I'm surprised it even got so many major award nominations to begin with. So there you have it, my picks for the major awards for the Oscars. Good luck to everyone else playing, and we'll see how we go on the night. Cheers.
Thanks, Haven. Here's his full list of picks for 2017. Our final nominee, oh boy, is back from last year. This guy likes to get out his soapbox and preach to the choir every time he makes an appearance on my channel. Ladies and gentlemen, movie Outhouse.
First of all, I'd like to say special thanks to the Jareeve for allowing me to come back after the events that transpired in the special last year. With that out of the way, let's talk some predictions for the Academy Awards. First up, I'll just start with the big list. We're going with that first, and then we're off to the appetizers. Best Picture. While I have yet to see every movie in this category, Get Out is the one that surprises me the most. It's far from a bad movie, but at the same time, it doesn't seem like the type of film the Academy would nominate. Dunkirk was an impressive achievement in direction and cinematography, but not the best overall film. Lady Bird was a nice coming-of-age story with some solid performances, sans everyone's favorite refrigerator enthusiast. Aside from that, I also saw 3 billboards outside Ebbing, Missouri, a movie I'm calling my favorite of 2017. Unfortunately, there's a decision that is made in this movie, let's say near the end, maybe throughout the film, that I think creates a little too much controversy for a win. So I'll have to pick The Shape of Water because it pretty much checks every box from costuming and set design to message and quirky characters. I'm not disappointed, it's a solid movie, just not my favorite from last year. But that's not how these award shows work. The Best Director category seemed fitting for Jordan Peele's Get Out. Obviously, there's some impressive effort put into scenes such as The Sunken Place, but is it enough to win? Probably not. Greta Gerwig is an odd choice. I tend to agree with the Jareeve in that it's not a bad movie, but the directing is the least remarkable aspect of this movie, if not just your standard work, but I guess it's an achievement for first-time directors, so here we are. Dunkirk should be a shoo-in just based on the sheer work that was put into this. Filming aerial flights practically must be not only expensive, but incredibly difficult to pull off. Thankfully, Nolan was able to recognize his weaknesses when it comes to character development and focus solely on action. The film is so busy, there is no time for them to sit around and reminisce. Dunkirk is probably his biggest achievement to date. Despite that, I will have to pick Guillermo del Toro's The Shape of Water for Best Director, mostly because I wanted to see if I could pronounce his name correctly on the first attempt, and I think it'll also pair well with his win for Best Picture. There were some interesting choices in the Best Actor category, namely Denzel Washington, because I didn't even know he was in a movie this year. The 10 minutes I saw of James Franco as Tommy Wiseau before turning off The Disaster Artist were fine, I guess, and outside of that, I only saw Get Out. Daniel Kaluuya worked well as the audience member, dropped into an incredibly uncomfortable situation, but I don't see him winning, since Gary Oldman has been receiving so much praise for his portrayal of Winston Churchill. I think picking him is a safe bet. 2017 was the year for outstanding female performances and Meryl Streep. Despite saying nothing in The Shape of Water, water, Sally Hawkins was remarkable in showing emotion through body language and facial expressions alone. Margot Robbie was fine in I, Tonya. I honestly don't remember too much other than supporting actress Allison Janney. In a way, I also think supporting actress Laurie Metcalf outshined the starring performance in Lady Bird. Saoirse Sarusi Sriracha Ronan is good, but there's one person I haven't mentioned yet. Frances McDormand is absolutely the standout in this category. Not only did she knock it out of the park in Billboards, but she made me turn on Lucas Hedges for good. I defended him. I was the top Lucas Hedges defender about a year or two ago. I defended him and his performance for Manchester by the Sea, but he is dead to me now. Awful. I was willing to give him the benefit of the doubt when working alongside Affleck, but this is the second time now where he just clearly isn't anywhere near the level of a good actor. And don't get me started on his appearance in Lady Bird. Sorry, this is the best actress category, and I'm rambling. Frances is fantastic. I loved watching her character play out as this anti-hero motivated by injustice. She was perfect for this movie, and I can't see anyone doing it better. With all of that said, I'm hoping she's a lock for Best Actress. While I'm still on the topic of 3 Billboards, Sam Rockwell is without a doubt going to scoop up the award for Best Supporting Actor. There's so much controversy around his character online right now, and despite the crazy people out there, I think that really speaks to his talents. I've said it before, but there is no good character in 3 Billboards. Despite the title giving it away, the entire point of this movie is still lost on some people, you know, watching anger and violence unfold, boil over, and the fallout of injustice, ebbing. Is that ringing a bell? Making any sense now? I'll move on before I start to spoil anything. Also in this list of nominees, Willem Dafoe, who was fantastic as the reluctant father figure for a bunch of trash babies in the Florida Project, while Richard Jenkins wavered between quirky, charming man and just kind of aggravating. Although I feel like that was kind of his purpose, so I can't get too mad over it. I guess Christopher Plummer is in this for not being Kevin Spacey, so good for him. Can anyone really sell me on that movie? Because all I hear about it is how boring it is. With all of that being said, my prediction is still set: Sam Rockwell for Best Supporting Actor. Last, but certainly not least in the main categories, it's Best Supporting Actress. As I said earlier, I think some of the supporting actresses outshined their leading roles in 2017. Laurie Metcalf played the classic mom in Lady Bird, a little rough around the edges, but all for good reasons. Octavia Spencer is a wonderful woman and a good comedy actor if she's not doing it on live TV. Personally, Allison Janney was the standout in I, Tonya. Maybe I just have this weird soft spot for older female actresses, except for Meryl Streep, but she played the perfect role to scoop up the win, an abusive, overbearing mother, so just give her the award and give me more bad moms to watch on screen. And now that all the big categories are out of the way, I'd like to take a minute to talk about one category that means quite a bit to me. Best Animated Feature is a category that I have a little more personal investment in than others. Let me take you back to early spring 2017. I was a young man unsure of where to go in life and disoriented by this changing world. Then I saw an animated film that changed my life for the better. I became a new person that day and spread the word of this cinematic masterpiece. I endured massive amounts of ridicule for my passion until the day the nominees were announced. I finally received vindication for my months of hard work. The Boss Baby, that's right, The Boss Baby 2017 is an Oscar nominee, and you can never take that away from me, which is why the Disney movie is winning. So that pretty much covers it for my major picks. I also expect The Shape of Water to pick up the award for production design, and Phantom Thread for costume design because the Academy loves dresses. Make sure you put in your bets before the show and use my list as your official picks because I'm feeling like a real winner this year. Thanks for having me, the Jareeve. I'd love to stick around and derail your show with some unnecessary politics, but I'm running a little late to a flag kneeling ceremony, so I'll catch you all later.
Thanks, Mo. Here's his full list of picks for 2017. Well, now we get to the part where I, the Jareeve, say my bit. Now, 2017 has been an interesting Oscar season for many reasons. One of these has been just the unpredictability of the entire year, something I felt for quite some time. While a good chunk of the nominations seemed like easy picks, there were some curveballs thrown in this year, and I even had quite an interesting time watching the nomination announcements. All of the sexual harassment and abuse in Hollywood has surfaced, and it's caused some people to be left off of ballots. In my opinion, the artist should be separated from the art in these cases because you're weighing in on someone's moral integrity instead of the art they've made. Even though we shouldn't award people for inappropriate behavior, I do believe their personal lives and decisions should be dealt with outside of award shows. I do believe there definitely should be consequences for their actions, but do we really think not nominating them for an award is going to be the big punishment? Anyway, the big categories this year are pretty interesting as well. To start off, Sam Rockwell will probably win Best Supporting Actor. As many in this video have said, the controversy around his character has been pretty pointless. This performance is of a terrible human being, and the story arc around him, which many people call a redemption story, makes sense, but doesn't condone the awful things he's done. Did any of those haters actually watch the movie? But I think Sam Rockwell is a lock-in for Supporting Actor. Allison Janney is a lock-in for Supporting Actress. Although Laurie Metcalf is great in Lady Bird, the buzz has been surrounding Janney's abusive mother performance, and I can see why she's the frontrunner. For Best Actress, although we got great performances from Saoirse Ronan and Sally Hawkins in 2017, I do believe Frances McDormand will win. As others have also said, this is a character that isn't supposed to be a good person, and it really is a tour de force, and McDormand will probably walk away with her second Oscar. Even though it would be fitting for Daniel Day-Lewis to win his fourth Oscar for his final performance in Phantom Thread, I do believe the makeup-laden Gary Oldman will snag his very first Oscar. Let's be real, Oldman is up for an Oscar that many deem a life achievement while also donning a ton of makeup to portray one of the most prominent historical figures of last century. Yeah, he's winning, hands down. As for Best Director, Guillermo del Toro is my pick. Because of Martin McDonagh getting snubbed for unneeded variety, del Toro is the frontrunner because of his impressive job with The Shape of Water. It's the big nominated film this year, he's probably getting it. As for Best Picture, I originally thought it was going to be 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. But because of some of the pointless controversy, I think The Shape of Water is the frontrunner and my prediction to win Best Picture. And here are all of my predictions for 2017. And I guess that's it. We've come to the end of the Oscar special that featured 14 different people predicting Oscars. As with last year, I shall upload a recap video following the ceremony to see who was the big winner. The Oscars this year are on Sunday, March 4th at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is the Jareeve signing off of Jareeve's very special Oscar Special Spectacular Special 2018. I would like to thank all the wonderful guests on this year's special, and I wish them all good luck. And don't forget, Sunday, March 4th, 8 o'clock Eastern Time. See you there. Have a good one.
Life couldn't possibly, life couldn't better be.
Life could not better be, better be, better be. It could not possibly, no, 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 siree. Days could not sweeter be, could not completer be. Is she in love with me? Yes, oh yes, oh yes, siree. You're a glum one, the world is gloomy and nothing's right. Then you meet someone, and what a change. Overnight skies could not bluer be, hearts in love truer be. I'd say for you or me, life couldn't possibly, not even probably, life couldn't possibly better be. Life could not better be, better be, better be. It could not possibly. No, 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 siree. Life's for living, if you'll pardon the platitude. Love's for giving, and that's my new attitude.
Overnight the skies could not bluer be, two hearts in love not truer be, and I would say for you and me,
life couldn't possibly, not even probably, life couldn't possibly, not even probably,
life couldn't possibly bear.